have your attention immediately, and I can wait for you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would please be sure to put your mask over your nose. Also, I know that social distancing isn't really going to be that much of a thing because we're moving to the point of having 2 grades back in, moving towards normalcy. Thank you for that. Ladies and gentlemen, up front, let's move quickly. Looking at you. Thank you. Keep on moving forward. Dr. Good, could you close the doors, please? And I would like to ask you to be sure that your phones and all electronic devices are away. That is very important for today's chapel. For those of you who are watching doing live stream, welcome. What makes this chapel different than any other chapel? Waiting for you to be silent. I know it's exciting. A couple of things that go along with this is that we have a very, very special guest who will be with us today speaking. As we celebrate Passover and moving from death into life, we are very fortunate to have Mr. Samuel Ron. I'll be introducing him in just a moment with a bit of his biography, but just for you to know, Mr. Ron is a 97-year-old Holocaust survivor. He has graciously volunteered his time to be here with you to share his experience. Not only is this an amazing gift to be a part of here at St. Andrew's School, but as we celebrate a very holy time of year in Passover, as well as Holy Week in Christianity, it reminds us of the life that we share here at this school, being open to the worship of God, to be accepting, to be loving, to listen to each other's stories, and to listen to each other's voices that are leading us on the path. And as we move on Spiritual Journey Week, we are very, very fortunate to have Mr. Ron here to join us to share his story. And within that, chapel is going to be very streamed down to give him as much time to speak as possible. So therefore, your attention, your silence, keeping the phones away is very, very important. What makes this chapel different than any other chapel? Well, we also have a documentary film crew that's going to be here videoing this event. So there's a fantastic story that I can tell you later of what's a part of this. But this is a very, very special time. I invite you to be silent as I open with just a moment of prayer. And then following that, there will be a musical meditation. In silence, let us give thanks. For all that we are, for all that we are becoming, for all that we are going through. We give you thanks for the time that we share together. We give you thanks for life that conquers death. We give you thanks that goodness is bigger than evil. We give you thanks that love will find a way. Bless us during this time as we think, as we grow, as we meditate to being the children of God you would have us to be. Amen. Would you please listen as Ms. Berland and Ms. Daniels provide a musical meditation for us, the meditation from Thais. Ladies? Thank you, Mrs. Burley and Mrs. Daniels. The theme for the next couple of chapels over the weeks are to be to serve as our own gifts allow, to help each other as we are walking along life's journey and life's pathway. Here is an inspirational and aspirational figure for us here as a part of St. Andrew's School. It is my privilege and my honor to introduce Mr. Samuel Ron, who was born in 1924, 30 miles outside of Krakow, Poland. Now, if you've ever seen Schindler's List, okay, that is where the action of that film began. His family was very, very successful in the lumber business, and then the world changed. And in the world changing, in September 5th of 1939, the Nazis occupied his hometown. Going through that time, he was then moved from the ghettos to many work camps. In the time that he was there together, finally, he was liberated in May 2nd of 1945. And after he was liberated from the camps, he worked in a group called Paraka, which was instrumental in helping children that had been misplaced or disassociated with because of the Holocaust. And also during the post-time afterwards, Mr. Ron was responsible for, I believe, going with 600 children and taking them to Israel so that they could find a forever home. In a world where there is evil that we know of, there is also hope, there is light, and there is life. Ladies and gentlemen, and I mean this is all sincerity of everything that brings me here and why I do this job. This is what makes St. Andrew special. Moments and individuals like this that you are blessed to be able to hear. A firsthand account of life and love and light, conquering evil. Would you please welcome to St. Andrew's School, Mr. Samuel Ron.
Thank you, Reverend. Thank you for all this. You know, this is a very unusual morning here. I've been talking for 60 years, but never an occasion like this. First of all, before our holidays, Passover and Easter, in this beautiful chapel here, we're there, and I'm looking out. If you are a privileged kids here, privilege. So actually, I heard that you already studied a lot of things about the Holocaust, so I would only talk about my experience now. But before that, I want to tell you that actually, the reason I'm speaking to you kids here is because we put all our hope in new generation. You are the one who's going to have to repair this world, the bad world we live in it. So it's on your shoulders. But you have to start out with small things. One thing you have to take out from the lexicon, hate. Don't ever use the word hate. Hate is a very bad thing. The other thing is you have to start out with small things. You have to behave with each other very good. And when you see somebody does something bad to somebody else, don't be silent, speak it out. So we put all the hope in new generation that you are going to repair the world. Now I was asked to speak about my experience in the Holocaust. I heard that you already studied a lot of it, so I'm not talking about generally. I'm going to speak to you about my experience in the Holocaust. I just want to tell you something, just something separate. You know, there's a big war going on now in Ukraine, and they killed thousands of people. But you know what happened? The whole world, all Western civilization is helping out, speaking out. They're there to help here. You know, when we in the Holocaust, when millions of people were gassed, killed there, nobody speaked out. The Western civilization was helping out the Germans kill millions of Jews, and everybody was silent, including United States of America and this. So maybe we learned the lesson. Now they're trying to help everybody. So now, you see, my name is Samuel Rahn. I was born in a small town in Poland, 30 miles north of the city of Krakow. The name of the town is Kazimierza Wielka. The town was not as big as the name was even. It was only a small town. We had 60 Jewish families. No, by now you know I'm Jewish too. I'm a Polish survivor. You know, the tragedy was that Polish Jews, we were only 70,000 Polish Jews survived the camps. 70,000 out of 3 million. And a few of us are still alive. Yeah. And few of us are still alive. You know, just a couple of days ago, I have to mention this, there's a great lady, passed away, a survivor, Gertruda Klein. She was 97 years old, and she was a writer and a speaker. So very few of us are still speaking. I'm 97, I'll be 98 in a couple of months. Very few people are there. So when I lived in Poland, in a little town, I was a happy child. We had a happy childhood. There was a lot of anti-Semitism, but I did not suffer personally. My family, I had a mother and a father and a young brother. We were in business. My family was well-to-do, not rich, but well-to-do. My father was a progressive man, an ardent Zionist, so I lived in a house, a progressive house. I went to a regular public school for 7 years, Polish schools, 3 Jewish kids, with 50 Catholic kids. And then the last year before the war, I went to a high school because we didn't have a high school in my little town. So I went to the city of Krakow to a high school, a Hebrew high school. Yeah. Now, when I was UH, 15 years old, the war broke out. The Germans attacked Poland. Let me tell you, it didn't take long. After the Germans, after 3 or 4 days, they occupied my city. Our life turned upside down the first day the Germans arrived in Poland. They started out with very laws every day. One day, they took our business away. They closed our schools. They took curfews, couldn't leave town, couldn't leave transportation. We didn't even allow to stop on the sidewalk to walk if Germans came by. And then what happened is, in the big cities, they created big ghettos. Like the city of Warsaw had 500,000 people, 500,000 people, very quarters. The issue was in the ghetto is 70,000 people died from hunger in the Warsaw ghetto. Then there were other ghettos. In my little town, there was open ghetto. We couldn't go in there, but we lived still in our house until 1942. But what happened is, in 1941, when the Germans attacked the Soviet Union, they were very fast conquered Russia. But they had behind them, they created 4 Einsatzgruppen, special forces, where they killed by single bullets, over 1 million people in eastern Poland, Ukraine. Particularly, there's one city, Kiev, In Kiev, they killed 36,000 people in 3 years. I was just wondering, where were the good people from Kiev then? Yeah, but that's a part of history. So, in 1942, in January 1942, the Germans had a conference in Wannsee in Berlin, and then decided on a final solution. It means final solution of the Jewish people of Europe. They had a list of 11 million people where they're going to destroy it. Now, what happened is they created not concentration camps, but they created death camps. Treblinka, Belzec, Sobibor, Majdanek, Birkenau. Was camps where there's no work there. They brought in millions of people, and a guest into that. So at that time, in my city, the time of deportation came in July, August 1942. So we decided, my family, we're not going to the gas chambers. We went in hiding with the Polish friends. Hiding, we went in, 8 people, to a barn. Yeah, but the issue was, on Saturday night, we left the house. Monday was the deportation. We had a 90-year-old grandmother in the house. We couldn't have taken her. She couldn't walk 6 miles. We had to walk to the hiding place. You can imagine what it was. We just walked out of the house. Nobody was chasing us. We walked out of the house because we didn't want to go to the gas chambers. So nothing was said, but we knew that next day she'd be dead anyhow. So we went into a barn, and while we were in the barn, there was a lot of execution of Jews in the outside. So we were not sure that we'd be helping. So we decided we smuggled ourselves into the ghetto Krakow. That was 25 miles away. I just want you to understand, we smuggled ourselves into the ghetto. How did we get there? My father served in the army with a nobleman, so he provided horses and buggies. He went like farmers to the market, so we went to the city, and then we smuggled ourselves to the ghetto. Why did we go to the ghetto? We had an uncle, Isaac Levinstein. I don't know if anybody is from New Jersey here, so we stand there. Now, Ghetto Krakow was divided between 2 parts, A and B. In Ghetto A, you had to have a job. If you didn't work, you didn't have the right to live. So Ghetto B was people destined to die. So I got a job in a place there. I worked in a metal factory. I created stuff for the German army. Apparently, the German army couldn't exist without me. It must be production for them. So finally, in March 13, 1943, they liquidated the ghetto. Did you ever seen the Schindler's List movie? You guys seen the movie Schindler's List? No? You better look at it. So at day they liquidated the ghetto. We marched into the Camp Warsaw. It was a suburb of Krakow, a labor camp. Now that labor camp was probably the worst place I ever been there. What happened is, I don't think, we were not still hungry there, but there was the commander of the Amnon Gad, the German, he shoot out from his balcony, or he shoot out any time with this. And then what we have is selections, selections. People, behind me was standing a woman. She was pinching her cheeks because she would like to be better looking. Otherwise, she was destined for death. So I worked in Warsaw until September. And then from September, they shipped me out. So the way this happened is I came back from the work, they put me in a stockade, and the next day, they put us in cattle cars. Let me tell you something. A cattle car, when you get in that cattle car, 100 people, they close the door, they put a bucket of water and a bucket of sanitation. It's unbelievable how you feel this. First of all, you don't know where you're going. You don't know, whatever they tell you, you don't believe this. And then I was lucky because we were working people there, but they moved millions of people in cattle cars to death camps, old people, young people, children, people dying before they get even to destination. So finally, we come to a new place, and that place became famous now, Pionki, because I don't know if you know the story. I don't know. I don't have time to talk about it. But we had the Holocaust Museum in Washington had a big dinner every year in Boca West. This year, I was the honoree, we were the honoree. And what happened is while they were showing the clip there, they mentioned Pionki, A man jumped out from the seat, coming running over to me, said, "You're my brother, you're my brother." I haven't seen him for 79 years. We were working in the same camp, in the same place for almost a year. So that's the reason that news became so big. You got today's cameras playing there. They're picking up that story is a national story. So I got to Pyeongki. Pyeongki was a place where a large ammunition factory, where 1,000 prisoners were there. Hard work, less food, sanitation was bad, and we was working there. I was there almost a year. So what happened in 1944, in the summer of 1944, the Red Army, the Russian army, advanced already. They occupied half of Poland. They stopped at the Vistula River in July 1944. Our camp was 6 miles away from there. So the Germans decided to evacuate all the prisoners west, Auschwitz, Buchenwald, whatever. So they stopped working in the company. We were making ammunition there, powder. So instead of that, we were assembling the machinery. So the manager of the company, Dr. Brandt, he decided he didn't want to go to the war. He got permission to move the machinery to Germany. So he had permission to take 300 Jews from our camp to Germany. So I happened to fall in the 300 people. So the rest of the people one day went to Auschwitz, and we remained 300 people in Pyeongki. We were doing dismantle all the factory and send it to Germany. So finally, after 2 weeks later, they decided that we're going to Germany. So we went in the trains. Well, we didn't get to Germany. They stopped us in a place around Częstochowa there, and they make us dig ditches, anti-tank ditches against they want to defend. The Russian tanks wouldn't make it. But it then took like 2 or 3 weeks. After that, they put us again in a cattle car, and they took us, yeah. But this time we were only 50 people in a train, in a car. And not only this, they didn't even lock the doors, and there were 2 assessment guards sitting at the steps of the doors. So finally, we went there. As soon as I seen that we crossed the Polish border, I was happy that we're not going to Auschwitz, but we went. So we went to a camp in Germany, Sachsenhausen or Ranneburg. It's one of the largest camps they created in the 30s, the Nazis for themselves. But you know, it was very interesting. When we got to Ranneburg, they didn't want us in the camp. They said, "We don't have any Jews there, and you dirty Jews from Poland going to bring typhus." They didn't want us. So for 6, 7 hours, they were discussing. Finally, they got us in there. So yeah, so they put us in a shower room, shaved. They cut our hair every place. They looked in our parts of body for pigs there. And after we got the shower, they put DDT. You know what DDT is? Infection. They had a spread on us there. And they gave us paper clothes, no shoes, and they put us in isolation for 3 weeks. If we don't get sick, then we can go to work. Well, for 3 weeks we were there, and after that they sent us to another camp, Glaven, where the machinery was there really. We were supposed to rebuild the factory. But let me tell you something. In Germany, in Sachsenhausen and in Glaven, we were hungry. Hungry. You know what hunger is? It's nothing unusual. You woke up in the morning and next somebody to you is dead. I'll give you the menu of the day, what we had in Germany for the last 8 months of the war. In the morning was a roll call. There were 30,000 people in the camp. It took us an hour. I could never figure out whether they was worried that they lose one person or so. Didn't happen. The roll call. After the roll call, we get coffee. The coffee looks like coffee. We get some coffee. And then we went to work. After we come back from work, we get soup. Soup. But closer to the end of the war, you couldn't even find a piece of wood in that soup there. And on Sunday, we got 2 slices of bread. This is for 8 months. This is probably the worst thing I expect in the camp for almost 8 months like this. There was terrible. Hunger was probably the worst thing in the camp there. There was hundreds of people died. Unbelievable. People walking around like skeletons, Hunger was the worst thing there. So finally, I've been in a camp there in Sachsenhausen. On April 11, they in Sachsenhausen we had like a red triangle was a political prisoner. They slept on that, a yellow triangle, the opposite way. It was like a Star of David. The Jews had like a Star of David, a yellow touch there. So the day before, we heard that there's some plans, they're going to separate nationalities. That means if they separate the Jews, that means for the Jews it's going to be bad things. So I don't know, a friend of mine or myself, we decided we pulled away the yellow stuff, so we became Polish prisoners, political prisoners. In the morning, they called us to set it up by nationalities. So we decided we're going to go in with the Polish people. Well, the Polish people didn't like us. They said, you dirty Jews, go to your own. So they pushed us out. But the guard didn't know what's going on. The guards pushed us back in. So I walked out with the Polish people. So as we walked out there, they gave us, for six people, they gave us fresh bread. I got a 6 part of 2 pounders over there. And I ate this. I finished that bread on the spot. And for 2.5 weeks, no food was given. For 2.5 weeks, no food was given on the death march. The first week we marched, anybody stepped out, got shot. No question, no jury, no judge, shot. Second week, everybody stepped out. They didn't care. They lay in the ditch. They didn't care this. Now we know now why this happened is Mr. Himmler was the head of the SS, German SS. He started making some arrangement with the Swedish people. He wanted to save himself, so they stopped shooting. Not only this, the Swedish Red Cross came and picked up some of the people from the ditches. Now, I would never walk in an ambulance because the Germans always pretended ambulance was a dead place. So then the last week, 4 days, they walked us in like 2,000 people in a forest. Let me tell you, young men, young people, some people ate the barks from the trees. Hundreds of people died there. So finally what happened on May the 2nd, 1945, at midnight, the guards disappeared. And my 6-year nightmare was over. We were free in the woods. It was the end of the Holocaust for me. So at that minute, I became a Holocaust survivor, a Polish Holocaust survivor. With only 70,000 of us survived that war there. Now, I don't know if you want me to continue talking about my story, or maybe you have any questions you want to do. So I can, I can talk about. This was the end of the Holocaust, but was not the end of our story. Okay. How much time we got yet?
Not time to wrap up.
Huh?
We need to.
You got more time?
No, about 2 minutes.
So let me tell you. So at midnight, the guards disappeared. So I was with one friend, was sitting on the tree. We were watching each other because if you sleep, somebody put your blanket or your shoes there. It was a very, very bad place. So we waited until the sun came out, and then we walked out from there. So we walked out, and then we seen a German house. So we stopped there. I thought, the first German I'll see, I'll kill. So we walked in there. There was a woman with a child. And we looked for some food. She said, there's nothing left because there were some more people before you came here. So, at that minute, our vengeance of killing was out. No more killing. So we keep going. We keep going. Then we find the abandoned German tank. We crawled up on the German tank there, and what we find there was sugar and cognac. So this was my first food after the war, a little sugar and a little cognac. Then we walked out to the main highway, and what did I see? There were thousands of German soldiers running away from the Russians. That place was very close when the Americans and the Russians was meeting there. So they didn't want to be captured by the Russians, so they was running out to be captured by the Americans. So finally I found a GI there. So we walked into the city. It was a city, Schwerin. And there was a place that they provided for survivors, old German barracks. But I seen in front of them was an American soldier standing with a bayonet. I said, oh, Sam is not going in anymore in a place where a soldier is watching there. So we found a bombed out house. Me and another friend, we made it there. But I tell you, next day I went downtown. So I went in, there was a Red Cross office. They gave me a big box of food, 20 pounders, I think, a package. And then the lady asked me a question. If you have next to kin, I didn't know what kin is even at the time. Now I know what kin is. So I started thinking about it, and I said, yes, I got an uncle living in the United States, and his name is Benjamin Rakowski. He said, where does he live? I said, in Lima. I didn't, we pronounce different in Polish than in English. Lima, we pronounce Lima. She said, Lima, where? I said, I don't know, Lima, Peru, Lima, someplace. She said, sit down, man, young man, think about it. So I was thinking about it, I was looking, and then apparently I had a good memory. I remembered that my uncle was sending letters of money to my grandmother, and it was written on the deck here. I know what was written. It was written, Buckeye Reliance Rubber Company. I started spelling her Buckeye. She said, Buckeye, that's Ohio. Buckeye is the symbol of Ohio. So that card got to my uncle. This was not the end of the story. Finally, I went out to the street. There were 4 GIs standing traffic. They were coming traffic there. So there were 2 GIs standing on the corner there. We looked at them and said, it seemed like this guy looked to me Jewish, a Jewish soldier. So we went over there. We asked him, are you Jewish? Are you Moshe from Brooklyn? Yeah, he said, I'm Jewish. So, what can I do for that? The first time he seen survivors, he took us in a big store, and he told us, you can have anything you want there. So that was my experience. But after this, after a few weeks, we went back to Poland. So in Poland, we were not welcomed in Poland, I can tell you. So I went into a Jewish community in the city of Krakow. There's a Jewish community there. There was a book on the table, and everybody came, signed his name. So I started flipping around the pages. I found my mother's name. My mother's name I found in an address where she lives in Krakow. So you know what happened? I didn't sign my name. I ran like a storm to look at my mother. So I knew the Krakow because I went to school there. I was in a ghetto there. So finally I got to the place where my mother's supposed to live. I knocked on the door, no answer there. The janitor comes out and said, your mother was in the hospital. And I said, what hospital? No, she's not sick. Her sister is sick. So I sat down on the steps and waiting, and my mother showed up. Now, I would not tell you that I don't know how to describe how my mother, I didn't see my mother for more than 20 years. She survived in a camp in eastern Germany. It was liberated by the Russian army. So I asked my mother, what happened? Why shouldn't she? She said, listen to this, and you listen carefully. She said, I went back to my town. She went back to Kazimierza Wielka. We had a house there. She said, I had bad experience there. At night, people came, they want to kill us. So we jumped out from the window, and my aunt broke a leg, and they went to the hospital. So my mother says, don't you go back to your own town. So I never went back to my own town because we were not welcome in Poland. If we came back, they were killing Jews there. They killed 1,500 survivors in Poland after the war. Anytime you came to you take your property back, you were killed. And then there was a big pogrom in Kielce, where they killed 42 Jews at the same time. Now, so I was going to another city. I walk in the city, and I found a friend of mine. He said, sir, what are you doing? I said, nothing, I'm just... He said to me, why don't you join me? I'm working for the Bricha. Bricha was an organization who smuggled Jewish people out of Eastern Europe through Italy, and they put them on illegal ships to Palestine. So I started working, fighting the British to go to Palestine, And let me tell you, that job was probably my best job I did in all my life, because I straightened up my job. I became somebody. We were smuggling any border. Nobody could stop us. So I become my dignity, my freedom. So that was my best jobs there. But eventually, I got to take 1,100 children to Palestine, to Israel. In 1946, February, I went to Israel. No, I don't know. I can stop anytime you want me. So that's. Then in Israel, I was a pioneer. I was we survivors helped building the state of Israel, and then I joined the army. We were a third of the Israeli army survivors during the independence war. Finally, I left my kibbutz. I married an Israeli girl. She couldn't come this morning here. She had a doctor appointment. But we are married for 72 years already. I lived in Israel 10 years, and eventually, see, my father survived the war too. He survived in Mauthausen. He spent the whole year in the hospital after the war, a military hospital. My brother, a younger brother, died. As a matter of fact, today is your side. He died a war. On today, I just put a candle this morning in my house there. My younger brother died in Mauthausen, like 80 years ago. So finally, what happened is my parents lived in Canton, Ohio, and it was a time when they become not well. So I had to leave Israel to take care of my ailing persons. So in 1956, I moved to the United States. And since then, I live in the United States. I lived in Canton, Ohio. I was a successful businessman. I have raised a great family. I got 3 kids. My son is a big businessman, a big company. My daughter is a professor at the Illinois University in Chicago. And another daughter I got was a disability. I had 4 grandchildren, one grandchild. And right now, I live in an independence living in Sinai residence, in Boca Raton. It's on the Federation there. So I keep talking for the last 60 years, and I hope we'll have a better times coming there. I hope that we have all the hope in you, and I hope and pray that you're going to be creating a better world that we're in there. Thank you very much, everybody.
You dropped your phone. I'm going to pick it up for you, okay?
What? That's okay.
There you go.
I don't need it.
Mr. Ron will be available at the end of chapel if you have any questions. We do have a small gift that we'd like to give for you and Bilha as a token of the appreciation of you being here. Gandhi had a great line, and Gandhi's line was at one point, I would have become a Christian if it wasn't for Christians that I've known. And I know the fact that for survivors especially, that there is a tension because you have faced so much anti-Semitic behavior crucially throughout your entire existence, and many times those have come from people who were a part of the church. And within that, it is very, very little we can do but to say, thank you for being here. This is your home as far as I'm concerned. Would love to have you come back at any given time. And God bless you, and thank you so much for sharing your story with us here today.
I was very happy to be here. And I thank you, Reverend, for all the good things you've done for me and for the rest of the people, and in particular in the chapel before the Passover and Easter. It was really a big opportunity to talk to your people. I don't know whatever it is. I hope.
The gift is ours, and thank you so much. Would you all please stand? And if you would join with me in a special prayer for Passover and for Holy Week. In silence just for a moment, process the story you've heard. Think about the cattle car that Ms. Blatt was instrumental with several others to stop the End Hate Now tour that we had in December. Think about the fact that there are educational administrators in our area that have denied the existence of the Holocaust. Think of the idea of what we can do to make light and love something that is incredibly real here in this place. This prayer is from the cycle of prayer of Episcopal schools. Blessed are you, Lord God, ruler of the universe. You call the many different peoples of the world to be your people. We bless your name at this time of Passover for the Jewish people, your people of the original and unbroken covenant. You brought them out of slavery into freedom through the waters of death to the land of promise, and through them you gave the Christian church the gift of Jesus of Nazareth, whose mighty acts of salvation for the nations are celebrated this week in Holy Week leading up to Easter. We praise and bless you for the Jewish teachers and students and all of those who are a part of our community that we share life with in this school. Help us to never forget the evil done to Jewish people in the Holocaust and in violence perpetrated by wicked people in the name of Jesus, so that hatred may not threaten the victory of love. Help us to root out from our hearts this very kind of prejudice and discrimination against any religious group, that we may truly be your people, the fulfillment of your promise. We pray in the name of the Jew Jesus that we may obtain through him with all of the people to say, the Jerusalem of God will be saved with the Jewish people in Passover next year in Jerusalem.
Amen.
Amen. You are dismissed. If you have exit out the side doors, go in peace to love and serve the Lord. Thanks be to God.